To watch the full episode, install the Pocket FM app.
At the Philly group, Mose made a call. "Hey, Gary. I've sent the money you wanted. You guys should be making your move soon, right?" At the end of the workday, Fraser sat in the restaurant he had booked and waited for more than an hour without seeing any trace of his wife. Then his phone rang. It was Natalia. "Fraser, help! Come here quickly!" Before she could finish her sentence, the call ended with a cry of utter fear. Concerned, he tried to call her back. However, it appeared that her phone had been turned off. His intuition told him that something had happened to her, and he tried his best to keep calm. Evidently panicking, he decided that he needed to find her whereabouts as soon as possible. He went back to the Robster Corporation and found Henry. "Natalia is in trouble," he said. "Help me find out where she is." Henry nodded knowingly.
"Actually, Mr. Macklemore, I just received the news and was about to inform you. Your wife was probably captured by Gary Mendez. According to my men, it's got something to do with Mose."
"Damn it!" Fraser smashed his fist on the wall. He knew that Mose wasn't a good person. "Who is this Mendez?" he asked. Henry shook his head and said,
"He's the leader of one of the 3 biggest gangs in San Clemente. But don't worry. We've already investigated and found out that they are currently at the McKinsey Club. I'll gather some men to go with you."
"There's no need. Just send the location of that place to my cell phone and I'll go by myself," Fraser spoke in a hurry. He grabbed a black trench coat hanging near the door and rushed out of Henry's office.
"Mr. Macklemore, you can't go by yourself. It's far too dangerous,"
Henry shouted as he chased after Fraser. Henry caught up with him when he stopped to wait for the elevator. He was putting on the black trench coat and he looked determined. The aura around him was completely different from how it had been a moment before. He gave the impression of being both powerful and single-minded. Nothing was going to stop him. He had kept his power hidden for a long time, but with someone he loved being threatened, it was time for him to put on his armor again. As a precaution, Henry still called his men. He couldn't bear the consequence of Fraser being hurt. In a luxurious private room on the top floor of the McKinsey Club, a man with a knife scar on his forehead was rubbing his chin and looking at 2 women leaning against the wall with their hands and feet tied together. One of them was Natalia, and the other was her best friend, Sheila. The man, whose name was Gary Mendez, was pleased to see that they were 2 beauties. He looked at Natalia and said,
"No wonder Mose was so desperate to get a hold of you. You have a great body. I heard that you have a useless husband. What a pity."
The women were gagged, so they couldn't say a single word. They could only shake their heads, which they did violently.
"Just accept that you're here and stop resisting. You can't do anything about it, so you might as well enjoy it."
That caused an outbreak of sniggering among the other men in the room. The door creaked as a man with a green tattoo on his face pushed it open and walked in. He was a member of Gary's gang, and his name was Ryan Briggs. When he saw the 2 girls who were tied up, he frowned. Gary glanced at the man and asked,
"Ryan, have you told that guy Mose that we have them?"
Ryan nodded and said,
"Yes, I have. He said he'll be here in half an hour." "Half an hour? How dare he make me wait for half an hour?"
Gary slammed his knife on the table. With his anger intimidating the 2 women, his dangerous gaze fell on Natalia and Sheila again. He said,
"Well, half an hour will be more than enough time for me to play with these 2 first. Letting Mose get the leftovers doesn't seem like a big deal."
"That seems reasonable,"
one of the men said.
"But don't forget to leave something for the rest of us, too."
Gary rubbed his hands together and slowly walked toward the 2 girls, a lustful look on his face. Seeing him approach, the women began to struggle even harder. Before he could reach them, Ryan stood in front of him and said in a deep voice, "We have our own rules in this business. They're prisoners who've done nothing against us. Is this appropriate?" "Stay out of this," Gary ordered. He pushed Ryan to the ground, then spat at him before ordering his men to tie him up as well. "You're still lecturing me about rules at a time like this? What a disappointment you are," Gary blurted. Gary cursed angrily and turned back to stare greedily at Natalia and Sheila. Within a moment, his large hands viciously grabbed at the two women. They tensed up, afraid that they wouldn't be able to escape. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as the door was kicked open and a man wearing a black mask and black trench coat rushed in. Gary turned around and saw that someone was trying to spoil his plans. His eyes flashed with a murderous light, and he asked, "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the one who's going to take your miserable life," replied the masked man. When the masked man saw Natalia's disheveled clothes and the red palm print on her face, he felt a monstrous rage in his heart. A blonde man cursed a few times and said, "Stranger, do you know who our boss is? You're making a big mistake by threatening him." The man then grabbed a bottle and went to smash it on the masked man's head. The masked man looked coldly at the blonde man and raised his arm just as the bottle was about to hit his head. There was a loud crash as the bottle shattered, and the masked man caught a large glass shard. Before the blonde man could react, he jabbed his hand forward and shoved the shard into the man's chest. The man coughed and fell to the ground, half dead. A few seconds of silence took over the room, and there was no more movement from him. The entire room was deathly shocked, and everyone's eyes were focused on the masked man. Natalia was terrified by the sight of what had just happened. As for Sheila, her eyes were glowing. A man who was vicious and aloof had always been her favorite type. Moreover, the mysterious and heroic aura of the masked man made her heart beat even faster. "Who are you?" Gary asked. "My guys are considered to be the best in San Clemente, so I hope that you can explain yourself." "I already told you. I'm the one who's come to take your miserable life." The masked man took some large strides forward. The others were stunned for a moment before pulling out their weapons and charging ahead. "Attack! Attack! Get him!" However, even though there were a lot of them, none were a match for the masked man, and they were all defeated easily. In less than 2 minutes, all of them had been knocked to the ground. The masked man turned his attention to Gary, who had never seen anyone so skilled. As the man in black moved toward him, Gary took a step back every time the man took a step forward. For once in his life, he was genuinely petrified. When he had reached the wall and had nowhere to retreat, he tried to calm the situation down. "Okay, you win. If you let me go, I'll give you half of what I was paid for doing this job." "Go to hell." Gary took out a sharp blade to protect himself, and with a resolute expression, he darted forward to stab the masked man's throat. Natalia and Sheila started to whine again, seemingly trying to warn the masked man to be careful. The man grabbed Gary's head, and with a quick twist, Gary fell to the ground, dead. There was a moment of silence. The masked man looked at the two women. He lightly pursed his lips but didn't bother with them. Instead, he walked out. However, as he passed Ryan, who was still tied up, he reached down and untied the ropes as he hissed, "Come with me." Natalia frowned as she once again heard the slightly familiar voice. For a moment, she fell into deep thought. Seeing the back of the man, she felt that his movements and silhouette were a little like Fraser's. However, when she thought of the masked man's skills, she quickly tossed that thought to the back of her mind. Although Fraser had fought in front of her before, he was not even close when compared to the man who had just saved them. Fraser is so unreliable, she thought. I've called him, but he still hasn't come to help me. She didn't notice that Sheila, who was still beside her, was completely infatuated. The masked man entered the restroom and took off the mask, revealing Fraser's face. Fraser had grown up in a family where close combat training was compulsory. His mother wasn't an ordinary woman. Even the strongest fighter in the family had been no match for her. With such a powerful mother, it was hard for Fraser not to be strong. He didn't think much of the men he had fought that day. Their fighting skills had been unremarkable. He hadn't wanted Natalia to identify that it was him because he didn't want her to see him acting violently. He remembered that she had previously said that handsome men were much more refined and cultured than men who knew how to fight. In a civilized society, fighting, in her opinion, was unacceptable. Ryan went up to Fraser and was surprised by his young face. However, he managed to hide his realization. Fraser said, "From the looks of it, you're one of the subordinates of that Mendez guy. Why did he tie you up?"
Because I couldn't bear to see him bully innocent women, Ryan replied. I tried to dissuade him, which didn't go down very well.
So you're a man of principle in the underworld, are you? Do you want to fight me? Ryan knew that he was no match for Fraser. With a submissive look, he just raised his hands in surrender, backed up to the wall and said, I'm a member of the underworld, and I've done many bad things. After I witnessed my sister being bullied, I swore that I would never do anything to harm innocent women. If you want to take revenge on me, go ahead. Fraser stared at him for a while before saying, All right, I believe you. Do you know what I want you to do? No, tell me, Ryan said with a straight face. From now on, you'll be the leader of the gang and you will answer to me. Do you have any objections? Fraser asked while furrowing his eyebrows. What? I'm the boss now? Ryan said, taken aback by his sudden change in roles. If it had been someone else speaking to him like that, Ryan would have thought the person was blabbering in their sleep. However, the person in front of him gave him a sense of power and solid authority. I guess you're saying you want me to become your man and work for you in the future? Ryan asked to confirm. Fraser smiled again. This guy's really smart, and he has some principles, he thought. He's the kind of person I need. Fraser expected to meet Ben McLemore sooner or later, so he needed all the help he could get. Yes, I want you to work for me. It's not going to be easy. If you follow me, you'll be in danger, but if you succeed, then you'll reach new heights. It's a bit of a gamble, and whether or not you have the guts to take that gamble is up to you, Fraser warned him. Droplets of sweat had formed on Ryan's forehead. He had a feeling that he was at a crossroads in his life. He had never lacked ambition, only opportunity. Since one had appeared so unexpectedly, he felt there was no reason for him not to take it. Gradually, Ryan's resolve became firmer. I'll do it, Ryan said. With that, he stepped forward and said solemnly, Boss, I'll do my best for you from now on. Fraser didn't have time to listen to his display of loyalty. His wife was still tied up, and there was nothing more important than saving her. After throwing the trench coat to Ryan, Fraser dialed Henry's number and told him to do two things immediately. One was to eradicate the Philly group completely. Fraser had decided that letting them go bankrupt wasn't enough. Secondly, he wanted the McKinsey Club to go bankrupt. Henry agreed to do both immediately. In order to give the impression that he was anxious, Fraser removed his mask and ran from the top floor of the clubhouse down to the lowest level. Just as he was about to run back up, he bumped into Mose, who was humming a tune as he walked into the building. Mose was in a great mood. He was thinking about being in bed with Natalia later. and his body had become energized with apparently imminent lust. When he saw Fraser, he asked, "What are you doing here? This place is very expensive, don't you know? You're such a loser, yet you dare come here to hang out with the wealthy. Whatever your reasons, you've come at a good time, 'cause I'll let you see me sleep with your wife today. I always keep my word." Fraser looked at Mose as if he were looking at a fool. Mose was oblivious to the way Fraser was looking at him. He said, "Listen, Macklemore, I'll tell you something. Your wife is currently being held captive upstairs. I sent some people out to capture her. Now, I'm gonna enjoy a delicious meal, and I doubt you've ever had a taste of its contents." Fraser didn't react, forcing Mose to say, "Do you think you can call Henry and get him to help you save your wife? Let's see if he still cares about you." Seeing that Fraser was still indifferent, he decided to call Gary to ask him to send some people down and capture Natalia's husband. He wanted to make sure that he could sleep with Fraser's wife in front of him. Mose wanted the man to see everything so that he could wash away his previous shame. However, for some reason, no one answered. "What's with that Mendez guy?" he muttered. Fraser spoke up. "If you want someone to come down and capture me, then don't bother. I'll follow you up," Fraser spoke with a cruel smile. "Feel free," said Mose. "I hope you enjoy the show. I know that I will." Still angry, Fraser took the elevator with Mose to the top floor. As the door opened, his anger soon changed to smugness when he saw the sight in front of him. Several people were lying on the floor. Some were wailing in shock or pain, but all of them were clutching injured arms or legs. Mose, who had been so confident a moment before, froze as they stared at the carnage. "What on earth happened here?" Mose thought, as he picked his way through the throng of people and found the room he was looking for. The door was wide open, and there were more fallen men inside. He stepped around them while looking for Gary, the one he had left in charge. Within a few seconds, he saw him slumped and motionless on the floor. Fraser grabbed hold of Mose's shoulder and swung him around. "What's wrong, Mose?" he asked, unable to hide a tone of satisfaction in his voice. "Where's that arrogant look on your face gone?" You, let me go," replied Mose, shaking himself free of Fraser's grip. As Mose shook himself free, Fraser noticed a movement behind him. He saw Natalia and Sheila, still tied up where he had left them. They both had panicked expressions on their faces. He rushed over to Natalia and quickly untied her. "Are you okay?" he asked her. "You scared me." "Oh, I hate you!" she screamed at him as he pulled the gag out of her mouth. As soon as her hands were free, she started to beat his chest with her fists. "What took you so long?" As her initial panic began to die, her anger changed to tears as she continued complaining. "You wouldn't believe what they did to me," she cried, sobbing as he took her in his arms. "It's okay," he said as he stroked her hair. "Everything's going to be fine." He held her close for a little while, letting her sobs die down. It was only then that he noticed Sheila, still struggling to free herself from the tied ropes. With an apologetic look, he moved to untie her. Sheila glared at him, offering him no thanks at all. As she rubbed her wrists, she grabbed hold of Natalia and put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," she said before she rushed off through the door. "Hey, Sheila, where are you going?" shouted Natalia after her. "Slow down." "I've fallen in love," yelled Sheila from over her shoulder. "I need to catch up with that masked man who looked like the prince of my dreams." That man in the mask and black coat seemed familiar, thought Natalia, studying Fraser. They have similar height, similar build, and similar clothes. Seeing Natalia eyeing him suspiciously, Fraser scratched his head. "What's wrong?" he asked. "What was Sheila talking about? A masked man? What does she mean?" "Forget it, it's nothing," she said, waving her hand dismissively toward Sheila's rapidly vanishing silhouette. "I think she's talking about the man in the trench coat who saved us." She turned to look at Mose, who had turned pale in fright. She knew he was the one who had caused all this. Natalia walked up to him and looked him squarely in the eye. "I could slap you," she said, clenching and unclenching her fists. "It's nothing less than you deserve." She thought back to the time she had almost slept with him and realized how she had a lucky escape. Mose didn't move. As her palm connected with his cheek, the sound of the slap echoed throughout the room. He blinked in shock and put his palm up to his face, gingerly touching where her hand had hit him. His eyes narrowed. "How dare you hit me?" he shouted. "Who do you think you are?" He raised his fist to retaliate when a sharp pain in his abdomen stopped him in his tracks. As he fell down, he saw Fraser's boot had kicked him squarely in the stomach. He landed with a loud thud at Natalia's feet. The now happy lady smiled smugly as he writhed in pain, unable to speak. Fraser grabbed Natalia's hand. "Come on, let's go," he said firmly as he led her out of the room. She didn't answer. Such was her newfound haste to leave with him. As Mose watched them leave, he started to squirm, his face full of hatred. "You don't know what's coming. Just wait," he shouted, continuing. "I'll teach you both a lesson you won't soon forget." There was no reply. They hadn't heard him. Natalia took a shower as soon as she and Fraser got home. She hadn't suffered any physical injuries, so a shower and a hug from Fraser were all she needed to recover from her trauma. "I'm fine now. Don't worry," she said, looking at his worried face. "Okay, but you should get some rest," he said to her gently. "Tomorrow, I'll take you to dinner to celebrate your new job." He ran his hand through his hair as the magnitude of the day's events hit him. Natalia's eyes opened wide as she noticed his hand. A huge bruise had formed on the back of it. "What happened to your hand?" she asked. "Oh, it's nothing," he said, quickly putting it behind his back in embarrassment. Mose did it." "Is that so?" she asked, puzzled. "No need to worry about it," he said brightly. "Your imagination's running away with you again." Natalia wasn't listening. Her mind was recalling the fighting skills of the man in the black coat. She shook her head, dismissing the idea that he might have been her husband. She knew it couldn't be Fraser. After all, they had been together for so long that she knew he didn't know how to fight very well. Fraser made her a strong hot coffee, and they sat silently for a few minutes. The only audible sound was her sipping from the cup. "Lynn comes home from college tomorrow," she said. "Can you pick her up?" "Sure," he said, sipping his own coffee carefully.
Hey guys, Fraser here. Listen to the full episode of Unraveling the Son-In-Law exclusively on Pocket FM app. Click the link in description to install the app now.